President Sisi calls on Egyptians to participate in the first phase of parliamentary elections. Syria allies advance near Aleppo with Russian cover. And the Yemeni government has been invited to take part in a new round of UN broker talks with Houthi rebels. Those were the main headlines. Now more details. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has called on Egyptians to participate in their thousands in the first phase of parliamentary elections due to kick off on Sunday and Monday. In a brief televised speech, al-Sisi urged voters to select those candidates who they believe will be able to build a amid the various challenges facing the country. The president stressed that the free and solid will of the citizens is the only way to eliminate terrorism and fight those who wanted to hijack the nation under false slogans. The head of state noted that the country's success in winning the non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council has been achieved after long political and diplomatic efforts. As Sisi said, Egypt would push for achieving peace worldwide at the 15-member council and back the efforts aimed at achieving stability and development. Minister of Defense General Sidqi Subhi has decided to allocate helicopters to transfer judges overseeing the parliamentary elections to remote areas and villages. Armed forces have begun implementing measures to secure the parliamentary polls, putting more than 185,000 officers and soldiers on high alert. Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces General Mahmoud Hagazi visited forces of the Central Military Zone to check on their preparedness ahead of the polls. The Ministry of Interior announced a state of high alert as forces and explosive experts began deploying at polling stations where the elections would be held. About 180,000 police officers and conscripts will take part in a plan to secure voting stations until the counting of ballots ends. Meanwhile, the silent period continues in the 14 governorates, where the first phase of the 2015 parliamentary elections will be held on Sunday and Monday. It's banned during the electoral silence for all parties, candidates, and the closed list systems to campaign or practice any activity. Media is also banned from tackling any topic that revolves around the elections and propagate for certain candidates. Egyptians residing abroad have begun casting their votes in the country's first parliamentary election since 2013. Embassies and consulates in 139 countries will be open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. according to the country's local time for the 2 days of voting. The Higher Election Commission said that voting would not take place in Yemen, Syria, Libya, and the Central African Republic due to the security situation in those countries. Details.
Voting had begun in most of Egyptian embassies and consulates worldwide to allow nationals living abroad to vote in the first phase of the parliamentary elections. Polling will be held on Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. according to each country's local time. Embassies in New Zealand, Australia and China have already begun polling, with other countries expected to open soon. Polling stations will be available in 130 countries excluding Yemen, Syria, Libya and the Central African Republic. Egypt has closed their diplomatic offices in these countries due to their security situation and political turmoil. Egyptians at home will be able to vote in 14 governorates on Sunday and Monday. The expats should have ID numbers or passports to cast their votes, and the process will be monitored by 6 international organizations and civil society representatives, including the Arab League, the EU Parliament, the Arab African Union, as well as COMESA and a number of foreign embassies in Cairo. Earlier, Foreign Minister Aid of Expats Affairs Helmi Loza said that Egyptian expatriates can vote in the upcoming elections without prior registration. The voting process abroad is scheduled in 2 phases. The first round is scheduled to kick off on October 17th to the 18th, and the second will be carried out on November 21st to the 26th.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri on Saturday. Shukri reviewed with the head of state the results of his latest visit to New York, in which he attended the UN session where Egypt was elected as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Ali Youssef said that the president stressed the importance of affording all kinds of assistance and protection to the Palestinian people against the Israeli aggression. Youssef added that al-Sisi discussed with Shukri Egypt's work plan in the coming period to coordinate with UN members of other regional and international. Egypt's priority is a member in the UN Security Council. The foreign minister also stressed that the Arab and African causes will remain on top of Cairo's priorities, as well as fighting terrorism and achieving regional peace and stability. The Cairo Criminal Court has adjourned to December 20th the trial of Ala and Gamal Mubarak, accused of committing violations in the selling of the National Bank of Egypt. Meanwhile, the Giza Criminal Court has postponed the trial of 42 terrorists affiliated to the so-called Ajnad Misr terrorist group to November 1st. The defendants are accused of targeting security checkpoints, police stations and public as well as killing several police officers and civilians. Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri met in Cairo with Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov, who is currently visiting the country. They reviewed the situation in Syria, Iraq and the occupied Palestinian territories, as well as means to combat terrorism in the region. The meeting also tackled cooperation between Cairo and Moscow that has seen a boom in almost all fields, including the politics, economy, and diplomacy. Russia's military said on Saturday it was continuing to use drones over Syria, despite suspicions that one of its drones was downed by Turkey. Turkey on Friday downed a drone that the U.S. military suspects to be Russian close to the Syrian border, although Moscow swiftly said its drones were all intact. Details.
Syrian regime forces edged forward in the northern province of Aleppo on Saturday with air cover from Russian warplanes, but faced fierce resistance from rebel forces in the center. Troops seized at least 4...
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, would you please highlight what's going on the elections abroad and comment on them?
You know that the elections, these elections, is the third landmark of what we call the political map, and sometimes the president calls it the map of the future. And the landmark is not new for the Egyptian people as Egyptian political history. Yes. We have, as Egypt, we have a long history of parliaments and parliamentary experience dating back, let's say, 150 years ago during the 19th century. And I think this is one of the most important parliamentary experiences. I mean, the coming election which tomorrow and which started with today already abroad. Why? Because the new parliament, what we call the council or the assembly of deputies, this new parliament will be charged with, will be responsible for the very extensive revision of a lot of presidential decrees which the president has passed all over the last period, and it needs to be rationalized, to be revised, to be added to and enriched, and maybe one day it can be cancelled even because of the, thanks to the authority of the legislative council. Second, we need militaristic legislation because we have a lot of missions to achieve in the near future and in the far future. Why? Because we have a lot of problems now. We have the problem of facing the poverty. We have a very acute and very, let's say, dangerous level of poverty all over our society. It needs to be faced efficiently and in the legislative authority. In the same time, we have to adopt a futuristic vision for our society. We have to adopt, in my opinion, when I'm talking now, I have something called the how to deal with the problem of water, in irrigation, in daily use, let alone the problem of the Ethiopian Nile. All these things should be addressed methodically, scientifically, and in the same time through a cooperation, constructive cooperation among the three authorities or the three estates in our society. In the same time, we were always suffering all over the last year until now, our projection of our image international arena. Why? All people, sometimes in good intention, sometimes deliberately, who wanted to defame us. We're talking about the lack of the representation of the people, the lack of the parliament. Yes, we did the first thing, which was the election of a president. Second, we did the second thing, which is the passing or of the constitution, and then we will try to complete or to perfect our mission, our political mission, by electing the new parliament. In this context, I have to emphasize my aspiration and my hope that a lot of women will be elected into the new parliament, of the younger generations be elected. Yes, sometimes they don't have enough experience, but you know, democracy, there is no school which is called the preparatory school or secondary school or even the university for democracy. Democracy should be or can be learned through practice, through trying to face the reality on ground. And that's why we as, you know, part of the intelligentsia, let's say, we as people who have a lot of hope for our country, we aspire to have a new parliament which is truly or even relatively representative of the aspirations and the hopes of our people.
Dr. Mohammed Al-Khouri, International Media Expert, thank you very much for being with us. And naval warships, aircraft carriers and submarines from the U.S., India and steamed into the Bay of Bengal on Saturday as they took part in joint military exercises off India's east coast. According to a joint